Hello, and spooky greetings to you all. A farmer and his family moved to new pastures in Tennessee, only to be viciously haunted and attacked by an invisible presence and a mocking ghostly voice, possibly a symptom of mental illness left undiagnosed due to the medical ignorance of the time, or possibly the relentless angry spirit of a jealous neighbour, obsessed with making John Bell and his family's lives a living hell. This is the case of the Bell Witch. Thought to be the spirit of Kate Batts, a neighbour who felt cheated out of a land purchase by John Bell and swore on her deathbed that she would haunt John and his descendants, most activity from the entity focused on John and his favourite daughter, Betsy, with the entity seeming indifferent to other members of the family. The witch was never sighted, but everyone heard her voice who visited. According to one person, the voice spoke at a nerve-wracking pitch when displeased, while at other times it sang and spoke in low musical tones. Moving to Red River, Tennessee in the early 1800s, which became Adams, Tennessee many years later, John Bell and his family looked forward to starting a successful farming enterprise. Having 3 more children, Betsy in 1806, Richard in 1811 and Joel in 1813, the Bells bought a large house and purchased more land nearby for farming. John became a successful and prosperous farmer and was well known in the community, being made an elder of Red River Baptist Church. One day in 1817, John caught sight of a strange creature while inspecting his cornfields. Sitting in the middle of a corn row, the animal had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. Obviously shocked by the appearance of this disturbing animal, John shot several times and the beast ran away. That evening, the Bells began hearing beating sounds on the walls of their log house. The sounds continued the following nights and increased in force and frequency each night. Often rushing outside to catch someone or something causing the noises, Bell and his sons never came across a perpetrator. For weeks after this, the Bell children would wake up frightened, complaining of rats gnawing on their bedposts, their bed covers being pulled off them, and their pillows being thrown to the floor by an unseen force. Soon, the Bell family began hearing faint voices. The voice was too quiet to decipher any words, but sounded like a weak elderly woman singing hymns. Things progressed with the Bells' youngest daughter, Betsy, seeming to be experiencing the worst encounters with the entity, with it slapping her and pulling her hair, often leaving marks and handprints on her face and body from the relentless attacks. John Bell originally wanted the strange occurrences within the family to remain a secret, but they became so numerous and severe that he confided in his friend and neighbour, James Johnston. Johnston and his wife agreed to spend a night at the Bells' family home, probably expecting to experience nothing and to put at ease the minds of their hosts. However, they experienced the exact same torment their friends discussed. When his bed covers were removed and he was slapped, Johnston jumped out of bed, shouting, "In the name of the Lord, who are you, and what do you want?" He received no response, and got to sleep with no disturbances after this. The disembodied voice grew in power and strength, to the point that it was now loud and unmistakable. The voice was capable of conversation, singing hymns and quoting the Bible. At one point, it even managed to quote 2 church sermons word for word, although the sermons it quoted were both given at the same time, the same day, and 13 miles apart. Word of the strange and amazing goings-on soon spread throughout the land, with people taking an interest in the ghostly visitor, and some skeptics believing it was nonsense. One such person was the Army General and future 7th President of the United States, Andrew Jackson. Having heard about the incredible events happening in Adams, Tennessee, General Jackson decided to visit the Bell house to either confirm it as a hoax or to banish the spirit away. Jackson had gained a reputation as being a tough soldier, fighting in many conflicts. 3 of John Bell's sons, Jesse, Drury, and John Bell Jr., fought under General Jackson in the Battle of New Orleans. Jackson took several men with him in a wagon to the property. However, as they approached, the wagon stopped suddenly and the horses could not pull it. After a while of attempting to move the wagon to no avail, even taking off the wheels to check they were rotating properly, Jackson exclaimed, "By the eternal, boys, it must be the Bell Witch." At this point, a metallic female voice was heard saying that the wagon may move, and that she will see them again later that evening. After this, they were able to move the wagon with no problems, and continued on to the residence. One of Jackson's entourage was a self-proclaimed witch tamer. After no strange events transpired as of yet, the man pulled out a pistol and claimed that the silver bullet inside would kill any evil spirit it came into contact with. He explained nothing had happened yet because the spirit was scared of his silver bullet. Immediately after this, the man began screaming and waving his body around, shouting that he was being stuck with pins and being beaten. Then, apparently a kick to the man's behind from an unseen foot sent him from the property. The entity, now angered, said there was a second fraud in Jackson's company, and that they would be identified and treated in the same fashion the following evening. Jackson was keen to stay to find out who this second fraud was in his party. However, the men who accompanied him were so scared of what they had just witnessed, they begged him to leave, and left the building immediately to the tents. It is not clear what happened next, but Jackson and his men left back to Nashville the following day. The Bell's daughter, Betsy, became interested in a young man living not far from her, a Joshua Gardner. They spent some time together, and Betsy became engaged to Gardner, having got the blessing of her parents. However, for some unknown reason that has never been clarified, the entity was not keen on the engagement, and repeatedly would tell Betsy not to marry Joshua. It seems the witch was not the only one unhappy with the engagement. Richard Powell, a former schoolteacher of both Joshua and Betsy, expressed interest in Betsy. Powell, who was 11 years older than her, wished to marry her when she grew in age. He was, however, secretly already married to a woman in Nashville by the name of Esther Scott during the time he professed his love to the Bell's daughter. Allegedly, he was a student of the occult, although this has never been proved. It seemed Betsy and Joshua could find no peace together, with almost every moment they spent together being tainted by constant pestering and taunting from the entity. It became unbearable, and Betsy and Joshua broke off the engagement and therefore never married. The entity, seemingly pleased with this, now focused all of its efforts on John Bell, vowing to kill him. John had been experiencing difficulty swallowing and had episodes of twitching in his face. By the autumn of 1820, he was confined to the house due to his illness. During this time, the witch could be heard cursing and berating Old Jack Bell, a nickname she sometimes gave him, her shrill voice present all throughout the farm. On the 19th of December 1820, John Bell slipped into a coma and died the next morning. Immediately following his death, the family found a strange small vial of liquid in a cupboard. Suspecting it to be poison, John Bell Jr. gave a little to the cat, which instantly died. At this point, the witch's dreadful voice piped up, exclaiming gleefully, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." Upon hearing this, John Jr. quickly threw the vial into the fireplace where it burst. Even at John Bell's funeral, which was the biggest ever seen at that point in Robertson County, Tennessee, the witch could not resist mocking. It is said that as the last few people were leaving, she could be heard laughing loudly and singing an old drinking song. Whilst obviously an extremely peculiar set of events, with some details being borderline absurd, it is widely believed that the Bell Witch case definitely happened, with historians and people interested in the case quoting accounts made by people of the time that swear it all occurred. There are plenty of theories as to what really happened around the farm, and most trying to find a rational explanation for such odd occurrences. However, no one single theory has been agreed upon. Some point the finger at the teacher Richard Powell. Being jealous of Betsy's engagement, he would have a motive to disturb the family. Some state that he achieved this using trickery and illusion to scare Betsy off her engagement. This seems unlikely, however, seeing as so many others allegedly heard the voice of the witch, and how relentless her taunting of the family was. Powell would have had to somehow been able to produce the voice of the witch at any moment, and never be seen doing this. It also does not explain the many physical events that were said to be caused by the witch. Some also quote Powell's alleged interest in the occult as a means to create the disturbances, saying he, being jealous of the relationship between Betsy and Joshua, summoned an evil spirit to taunt and bully them both. However, Richard Powell's involvement in the occult is merely a rumour. Also, this does not explain why most of the malicious intent from the entity was focused on John, as Richard would have no qualms with Betsy's father, as it was her relationship with Joshua that was his problem. Others blame mental illness, claiming that John Bell most likely suffered from a mental illness or was delusional, stating that he was seeing and hearing these things when in fact it was due to his unstable mind. But it was not just John Bell who claimed to be experiencing these events, with his wife and children all stating that the freaky phenomena was really happening around the house. Also, many others outside of the family flocked to the farm, they too telling their tales of the witch's voice. In fact, to this day, some strange activity is still said to take place, with people visiting the grounds hearing faint sounds of children playing and people talking when no one's there. Candle lights are also said to be seen dancing through the fields at night. There is also a cave near the property that's said to be haunted by the witch. Whatever the cause of these events, something very wrong was happening around the Bells farm in 1817 and onwards, with the horrific and bizarre events still being talked about some 200 years later. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider subscribing if you want to see more like it. And thanks for watching.